What happens when Hollywood royalty meets British television royalty and it all goes horribly, catastrophically wrong? In just 36 seconds, one comment would unravel an entire interview and lead to the most shocking exit in talk show history. Graham Norton sat in his iconic chair, the studio lights warm and inviting. His audience settled in for what they thought would be another delightful evening of celebrity banter and laughter. His guest tonight was Meghan Markle, and the anticipation in the room was electric. Everyone expected charm, perhaps some lighthearted royal gossip, maybe a funny anecdote or two. Nobody, absolutely nobody, expected what was about to unfold. Graham opened with his signature warmth, leaning forward with that twinkle in his eye that has made him one of the most beloved hosts in television. Meghan, welcome to the show. It is absolutely lovely to have you here tonight. Meghan smiled, but there was something different about it, something tight around the edges. Thank you for having me, Graham, though I must say I expected a more impressive setup. The audience laughed nervously, unsure if this was a joke. Graham, ever the professional, chuckled along. Well, we do our best with what we have. Now, I wanted to ask you about your latest project. Before we get into that, Meghan interrupted, holding up one hand. Can someone adjust the lighting? It is far too harsh on this side. I specifically requested softer lighting in my rider. Graham glanced toward the crew, maintaining his composure. Of course, we can look into that, but perhaps we could start with a few questions while they work on it? I would rather wait, Meghan said flatly. Lighting is very important for television. You should know that, Graham. The host smiled, though the audience could sense a shift in the room. Right. Well, while we sort that out, let me ask you about working in Hollywood. You have had quite the journey. Quite the journey, Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with something that sounded like condescension. That is one way to put it. Though I would say my journey has been extraordinary, not just quite. There is a difference. Graham nodded slowly, his professionalism unwavering. Of course, extraordinary. You have certainly captured the world's attention. Now, what drew you to your current projects? What drew me, Meghan said, sitting back and crossing her legs with an air of superiority, is the fact that I have a platform that most people could only dream of. I have a responsibility to use that platform, unlike some people who simply use their shows for silly games and superficial conversations. The air in the studio turned ice cold. The audience sat in stunned silence. Graham's smile remained, but his eyes showed the slightest flicker of surprise. Well, I like to think we have a bit of fun here, yes. Entertainment is rather the point of a talk show. Entertainment? Meghan scoffed. Is that what you better call it? I call it a waste of airtime that could be used for important conversations, real issues. Not just giggling about who wore what on the red carpet. Graham shifted in his seat, his voice remaining calm and measured. I think our viewers appreciate a mix of both, actually. We have had many serious conversations on this show, but we also believe in making people smile, especially in difficult times. Making people smile, Meghan said with a dismissive wave of her hand. That is such a British thing to say, always deflecting from real problems with humor and pleasantries. It is quite tiresome, honestly. The audience gasped audibly. This was no longer playful banter. This was something else entirely. Graham sat up straighter, his legendary patience being tested in real time. I am sorry you feel that way, Meghan, but I think there is value in bringing joy to people. It is not deflecting. It is offering comfort. Comfort? Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what would be comforting, Graham? If interviewers like you actually asked meaningful questions instead of the same tired drivel about fashion and lifestyle. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to sit through these interviews? Graham took a breath, his composure remarkable given the circumstances. If you find this format exhausting, I am curious why you agreed to come on the show. Because, Meghan said, leaning forward with intensity, I was told this would be different. I was told you were one of the good ones. But here we are, and you are just like all the rest. Predictable, boring, insignificant. The studio fell into absolute silence. Even the crew members stood frozen, unsure of how to react. Graham Norton, a man who has interviewed thousands of celebrities with grace and wit, sat across from someone who had just called him insignificant on his own show. I see, Graham said quietly, his voice steady but firm. Well, Meghan, I pride myself on creating a space where guests feel welcome and comfortable. But I also pride myself on respecting everyone in this room, from my audience to my crew, and I expect the same in return. Respect, Meghan said, her voice rising slightly. You want to talk about respect? Let me tell you about respect, Graham. Respect is not making someone sit under unflattering lights. Respect is not asking surface-level questions. Respect is recognizing when you are in the presence of someone who has actually done something important with their life. I absolutely recognize your accomplishments, Graham replied, his tone still remarkably calm. But I also recognize the accomplishments of every person who walks through that door. And part of this show is creating a conversation, not a lecture. A conversation requires two people of equal standing, Meghan shot back. And I am sorry, Graham, but sitting here, I do not feel like we are equals. I have lived a life that most people cannot even imagine. I have been inside palaces. I have dined with world leaders. I have experienced things that you could never understand from behind your little desk with your little red chair. The audience began to murmur, a low buzz of discomfort spreading through the room. Graham remained seated, his hands folded calmly in his lap. I am quite happy with my little red chair, actually. It has served me well for many years. And I have been fortunate enough to meet extraordinary people from all walks of life. Each one has a story worth telling. Oh, please, Meghan said with an exaggerated eye roll. Do not give me that everyone is special nonsense. Some people are simply more important than others. That is just a fact. And right now, I am sitting here wondering why I'm wasting my time with someone who clearly does not appreciate the gravity of having me on their show. Graham took another breath, and for the first time, his audience could see something shift in his expression. Not anger, but a quiet resolve. Meghan, I invited you here tonight because I thought we could have an interesting conversation. I thought you might enjoy sharing your perspective with an audience that was genuinely interested in hearing from you. But what I will not do is sit here and allow you to belittle the work that I do, the team that works tirelessly to make this show happen, or the audience that has taken time out of their evening to be here. Belittle? Meghan repeated with a harsh laugh. You think I am belittling you? I am simply telling you the truth. Maybe that is something you are not used to hearing. Maybe you are so used to celebrities coming on here and playing nice, laughing at your jokes, pretending that this show matters. But I am not going to do that. I have too much integrity. Integrity, Graham said, and now there was an edge to his voice that had not been there before. Integrity is treating people with kindness and respect, regardless of their position or status. Integrity is Hassim, recognizing that every job has value, from the person who sets up the cameras to the person who greets guests at the door. And integrity, Meghan, is certainly not coming onto someone's show and insulting them repeatedly. Meghan stood abruptly, her face flushed. How dare you lecture me about integrity? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have been through? I know exactly who you are, Graham replied, still seated, still composed. But who you are does not give you the right to treat people poorly. Fame is not a free pass to be unkind. Unkind. Meghan practically spat the word. You want to see unkind, Graham? Unkind is wasting my time with this pathetic excuse for an interview. Unkind is not living up to the standards that were promised. Unkind is sitting there in your smug little chair, acting like you are some sort of moral authority when you are nothing but a talk show host who asks celebrities about their holidays. The audience began to react more vocally. Now, a mix of gasps and scattered disapproval. Graham stood up slowly, his height suddenly commanding the space. Meghan, I think it is time for us to end this interview. End it? Meghan laughed incredulously. You are going to end it? I was about to walk out anyway. This has been the most unprofessional experience I have ever had. Your show is a joke, Graham. An absolute joke. Then you are free to leave, Graham said calmly, gesturing toward the exit. But before you do, I want to say something. I have interviewed some of the biggest names in entertainment, politics, and culture. I have spoken with people who have every reason to carry themselves with pride. And yet, the ones who are truly remarkable are the ones who remain humble. The ones who understand that treating others well is not optional. It is essential. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair, her movements sharp and angry. Humble. You think I should be humble? After everything I have achieved, after everything I have overcome, you want me to sit here and be humble for your little show? I want you to be decent, Graham replied simply. That is all I have ever asked of anyone. Decent, Meghan scoffed. I am decent to people who deserve it. And you, Graham Norton, have done nothing tonight to deserve my decency. This lighting is atrocious. These questions are beneath me, and quite frankly, you are beneath me." Graham did not flinch. "Then, I suppose there is nothing more to say. I wish you well, Meghan. I genuinely do. But I will not continue this conversation if you cannot extend basic respect to myself, my team, and my audience." "Your audience," Meghan said, looking out at the crowd with disdain. "They should be grateful that I even showed up. Do you know how many interviews I turned down? Do you know how selective I am about where I appear? And this is what I get. This is the treatment I receive." "The treatment you are receiving," Graham said, his voice firm now, "is the same treatment every guest receives. You are being asked questions, you are being given a platform, and you are being treated with respect. The difference is that you have chosen to respond with hostility and condescension." "I have chosen," Meghan said, her voice rising to a near shout, "to stand up for myself, something you clearly do not understand. You just sit there and let people walk all over you with your fake smile and your silly questions. Well, I am not going to play that game." "Nobody is asking you to play a game," Graham said evenly. "We are asking you to have a conversation. But if that is too difficult for you, then perhaps you are right. Perhaps this is not the right place for you." Meghan's eyes flashed with fury. "You are actually kicking me off your show? Do you have any idea what this will do to your reputation? Do you know how this will look?" "I am not kicking you off," Graham clarified. "I'm giving you the choice to either sit down and have a respectful conversation or to leave. The decision is entirely yours." For a moment, Meghan stood there, her chest heaving with barely contained rage. The studio was so quiet that you could hear the hum of the cameras. Every eye was on her, waiting to see what she would do next. "This is unbelievable," she finally said, her voice shaking. "I came here in good faith. I came here to share my story, my truth. And this is what I get: disrespect, disregard, complete and utter unprofessionalism." "Meghan," Graham said gently, one last attempt at de-escalation. "I truly am sorry that you feel this way, but I cannot allow you to continue speaking to people this way. Not on this show, not in this space." "You cannot allow," Meghan repeated mockingly. "Who do you think you are, Graham? You are not royalty. You are not special. You are a television host who got lucky. That is all." "Perhaps," Graham acknowledged with a slight nod. "But I am a television host who treats people with dignity. And I am a television host who will not tolerate bullying or cruelty, no matter who it comes from." "Bullying," Meghan gasped dramatically. "You think I am bullying you? This is rich. This is absolutely rich. I am the victim here, Graham. I am the one who has been mistreated. I am the one who has been subjected to impossible standards and constant criticism. And now you have the audacity to accuse me of bullying?" "I am not accusing you of anything," Graham said carefully. "I am simply observing your behavior and responding accordingly. You have called me insignificant, boring, and unprofessional. You have dismissed my audience and my team. You have made it very clear that you believe yourself to be above this entire experience. Those are your words, not mine." Meghan opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Her face was red, her hands trembling slightly. "I want you to know," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "that I will be telling everyone about this. Everyone. My people will make sure that the world knows exactly what happened here tonight. How I was treated, how I was disrespected. You are welcome to share your perspective," Graham said calmly. "And I am confident that the footage will speak for itself." That seemed to stop Meghan cold. Her eyes widened slightly as the reality sunk in. Every word, every insult, every dismissive gesture had been captured on camera. There would be no rewriting this narrative. "You recorded this," she said, though it was not really a question. "This is a television show," Graham replied matter-of-factly. "Everything is recorded, as you well know." Meghan stood frozen for a moment longer, and then something seemed to break inside her. "Fine," she said sharply. "Fine. I am leaving. This show is a disaster anyway. Nobody watches it anymore. You are past your prime, Graham. Everyone knows it." "Perhaps," Graham said again, unruffled. "But I still show up every week and try to bring a little bit of joy to people's lives, and I am proud." "Of that joy?" Meghan sneered. "Keep telling yourself that." She turned toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. But before she could take more than a few steps, Graham spoke again. "Meghan," he called out, And she stopped but did not turn around. I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you are looking for. I hope you find peace, because this, he gestured to the space between them, this is not it. Meghan's shoulders tensed, but she did not respond. She simply continued walking, her head held high, her expression defiant. The studio doors opened, and she disappeared through them without a backward glance. The audience sat in stunned silence for several long seconds. Then, slowly, tentatively, someone began to clap. Then another person joined in, and another, until the entire studio was applauding, not in celebration, but in support of their host who had just navigated the most bizarre and uncomfortable interview of his career with grace and dignity. Graham stood there, looking slightly overwhelmed, and gave a small, humble bow. "Well," he said with a shaky laugh, "that was certainly unexpected." The audience laughed with him, a release of all the tension that had been building for the past several minutes. Graham ran a hand through his hair and shook his head in disbelief. "I have been doing this job for a very long time," he continued, "and I can honestly say I have never experienced anything quite like that." Someone from the audience shouted, "You handled it brilliantly," and others voiced their agreement. Graham smiled, genuine warmth returning to his face. "Thank you. That is very kind. I think we could all use a drink after that, to be honest." More laughter rippled through the crowd. He walked back to his chair and sat down, composing himself. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I always say that this show is about creating a space where people can relax, be themselves, and have fun. Sometimes that works beautifully. Sometimes, as you just witnessed, it does not work at all. But I think what matters is how we respond when things go wrong." The audience listened intently, hanging on every word. "I could have gotten angry," Graham continued. "I could have shouted back or been cruel in return, but that would not have made anything better. It would have just created more ugliness. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to let someone else's anger or frustration turn me into someone I am not proud of." Another round of applause erupted, louder this time. "I want everyone watching to know," Graham said, looking directly into the camera, "that you deserve to be treated with respect, always. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, no matter how much money you have or do not have, your dignity matters, your feelings matter. And nobody, absolutely nobody, has the right to make you feel small." The applause grew even louder, people rising to their feet now. Graham looked genuinely moved by the response. "We have more guests coming up," he said with a smile, "and I promise you, they will be delightful. So please, stick with us. We are going to shake this off and have a wonderful rest of the evening." As the show cut to commercial, the crew surrounded Graham, offering support and checking to make sure he was okay. He assured them all that he was fine, that these things happen, and that they should not let it ruin the rest of the night. Behind the scenes, word spread quickly about what had just transpired. Other guests scheduled for later in the show expressed their support for Graham and their shock at Meghan's behavior. The energy backstage was a mixture of disbelief and solidarity. When the show returned from commercial, Graham was back to his usual self, chatting with his next guest with warmth and genuine interest. If he was still rattled by what had happened, he did not show it. He was the consummate professional, guiding the conversation with ease and making sure his guests felt comfortable and valued. Throughout the rest of the evening, the audience remained incredibly engaged, almost protective of Graham. Every joke landed a little harder. Every laugh felt a little more supportive. It was as if everyone in that room wanted to remind him that he was appreciated, that his work mattered, and that one difficult interaction could not diminish everything he had built over his remarkable career. The final guest of the evening brought up the earlier incident gently, saying how impressed they were with how Graham had handled such a challenging situation. Graham demurred, saying he had simply tried to do what felt right in the moment. "I think we all have moments where we are tested," Graham said reflectively, "where someone pushes our buttons or challenges our patience. And in those moments, we get to choose who we want to be. I chose to be calm. I chose to be firm but fair. And I chose to protect the space that we have built here. This space that is supposed to feel safe and welcoming." The guest nodded appreciatively. "It is a testament to your character, truly." "Thank you," Graham said sincerely. "But honestly, I just wanted to make sure that everyone here, from the audience to the crew, knew that I would stand up for them, that I would not allow someone to come in and treat any of us poorly. We are a team here. We are a family, and families protect each other." As the show drew to a close, Graham addressed the audience one final time. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for your support and your kindness. And thank you for understanding that sometimes television does not go according to plan. But that is okay. Life does not always go according to plan either. What matters is how we handle the unexpected moments with grace and integrity. The audience gave him a standing ovation as the cameras faded out, their applause echoing through the studio. Graham Norton stood there, looking humbled and grateful, a reminder that true class cannot be shaken by someone else's lack of it. In the hallways outside the studio, staff members were still processing what they had witnessed. Many expressed pride in their boss for handling such a volatile situation without losing his cool. Others talked about how uncomfortable it had been to watch someone behave so disrespectfully in what was usually such a positive environment. The general consensus was clear. Graham Norton had shown exactly why he has remained one of the most respected figures in television for so many years. Not because he never faces challenges, but because of how he faces them. With dignity, with kindness, and with an unwavering commitment to treating people well, even when they do not extend him the same courtesy. What started as an evening that promised lighthearted entertainment had turned into something entirely different. It became a masterclass in grace under pressure. It became a reminder that how we treat others, especially in difficult moments, defines who we are. And it became a testament to the fact that true professionalism is not about never encountering problems, but about how we navigate them when they inevitably arise. Graham Norton did not set out to teach anyone a lesson that evening. He simply tried to maintain the values that have always guided him: respect, kindness, and integrity. But in doing so, he showed millions of viewers what those values look like in action. He showed them that it is possible to stand firm without being aggressive, to set boundaries without being cruel, and to maintain your dignity even when someone is actively trying to strip it away. The contrast between his behavior and Meghan's could not have been more stark. Where she saw an opportunity to assert dominance and superiority, he saw an opportunity to demonstrate humanity. Where she chose insults and condescension, he chose measured responses and quiet strength. Where she demanded special treatment, he simply asked for basic respect. And, in the end, it was obvious to everyone watching who truly understood what it means to be remarkable. It was not the person with the titles or the palace connections. It was the person who showed up, did their job with excellence, and treated every single person in that room as though they mattered. Because to Graham Norton, they did matter. They all did. That is what made the evening so powerful, not the drama itself, but the clarity it provided. In 36 seconds, a single comment had set off a chain reaction that revealed everything anyone needed to know about character, class, and the difference between demanding respect and actually earning it.